Hey friend, welcome to Healthy with Heather Brown. If you don't know where to start with balancing being healthy and loving the life you already have, I got you, friend. And yes, of course, we're still going to enjoy some Chick-fil-A. I'm here to come alongside you and encourage you to fall more in love with your creator, your spouse, your kids, and your own health journey. We'll talk about how to let your good things grow until they become daily habits, with the occasional dad joke and point of view from my Yankee hubby, Eric. Don't stress. Let's hop on this Hot Mess Express together. So join me, Heather Brown, as we unpack what it looks like to live a life well loved. Hello, girl gang. Hope you guys are having a great start to your day. I'm so excited to be welcoming Rachel Awtrey onto the podcast today because she walks out so beautifully the mind-body-spirit connection by actively weaving her faith and what she learns in counseling into her everyday conversations. And we talk so much about the importance of that here. She is a podcaster at Behind the Bliss. You may actually remember when I was on her show back in 2020 before I had my own podcast or even really knew what podcasting was. She has over 1 million downloads already on Behind the Bliss. And she's also a mom of 2 littles who loves to find joy in everyday life. And fun fact, we're both in Beham. So with all that said, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here, Heather. You have no clue. Slash, I'm like, next time we got to do this in person.
I know. Why didn't we? Dang it.
You're good. You're so good.
I know. Probably because of babysitting schedules and all the things.
I was about to say childcare, real life mom stuff, you know.
Yes, exactly. So, Rachel, anybody that doesn't know who you are, will you tell them a little bit about you, your kids, Thomas, like you're moving, all the things?
My name is Rachel Awtrey. I call myself an online encourager. You can find me on Instagram doing all the fun things similar to Heather, like just love to share what's behind the scenes at our house, all the crazy chaos, fun, beautiful, you know,
all of it.
All the things. I also love to chat behind the mic like Heather does over on Behind the Bliss podcast. Started my podcast back in 2018 just for fun, like a fun, good summer project, and decided, what the heck, this is crazy. This is cool. We have a community. Let's keep going. And so haven't felt called to leave it yet. So it's still a thing. Would love for people to come listen.
That's right.
Been the biggest blessing because podcast world is super remote. I mean, you could do this from anywhere, truly. So I am a military wife, which makes that really convenient because we have moved. I mean, it's kind of crazy. We've moved 8 times within 6 years of marriage.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, that's wild.
I know. Every time I say it, I'm like, am I good? I think I'm okay. We made it.
My therapist says I'm fine. So
yeah. I'm like, and that's why we're in therapy. Amen.
Exactly.
So yes, my husband is a pilot in the Air Force. He also is a civilian pilot. We fly around for fun. We love to travel. It is truly a blast. Another huge God story for later. It sounds super bougie to be like, oh yeah, we fly around in a plane. I'm like, but it took a lot to get there, a lot of behind the bliss. And then I have 2 boys, mom to Oliver, who is 2 months, and then Maddox, who is almost 2 years. So we're in the trenches. We're doing the dang thing.
So you've already said so many things that I'm like, I know our community can't wait to hear about. But Rachel, one thing that I hear over and over again from mamas when they tune into the podcast is like, I just so want like that community or like that friendship group. And you travel a lot, number one. And number 2, you move a lot, like you were just saying. So what do you do to find intentional Christian friends when you're moving?
Okay, this sounds actually crazy. I had to lay down my reputation. I think for the longest time, this is just me. I don't know why. It's something I've been working through, but I really care about what people think about me. And not in the kind of way where I'm like, oh, I want people to think I'm so cool or I got it all together. It's not that kind of thing. I want people to think that I'm genuine and I have connection. I have this fear of being misunderstood. And so that has kept me for the longest time from being the first to step out on an iceberg, like the first to be afraid to break the ice. And the Lord broke me of that through military training. So it took about 2.5 years to finish pilot training for my husband to, learn how to fly an airplane. And we're on the other side of that, but we moved 3 times within that time. And so we had to learn a lot about what it was like to make friends, find a community, find a church, 3 separate times. And so, yes, the Lord sweetly broke me of my fear of what people are going to think about me and being misunderstood because everyone was just as desperate to make a pal. So, I mean, Heather, it truly looked like seeing people walk down the street and being like, oh my gosh, their dog is so cute. Let's roll down our window, say hi, to making brownies every time we moved and bringing them to our neighbors, to just sitting in our front yard. We've made so many friends just going on walks, sitting in their front yard, waving to people. And the biggest theme is really like being okay to be the first and say, I'll go. Like, I'll go first. I'll make the first move. Because I think everyone is just as desperate for a friend as you are. It's just not everyone's willing to admit it.
Oh my gosh, so true. So it's so interesting to me how, front porch sitting used to be like a normal thing that people did, especially in the South. Talk about that a little bit. Like, what does that look like as culture has moved more towards social media? And how do we cultivate the community that you have on your podcast? And talk about the good and bad of social media and real life relationships, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has been something that I feel like the Lord's really taken me through recently, is figuring out your inner circle, your outer circle, the middle people. And I'm reading this book. It's so cool. It is, especially for the boy moms out there, must read, add to your list. So Heather, I don't know.
I know. I'm like, I'm about to write it down. I'm ready.
It's called Raising Emotionally Strong Boys by David Thomas. And it has been more, I think, a read that Rachel needed more than Oliver and Maddox need me to read.
Yeah.
It's just basically about emotionally being in tune with yourself and life and all the things. So one of the things that he said, David, the author, said was, in life, you're going to have, in this race per se, like the big analogy of this being a race, you're going to have spectators, and then you're going to have people that don't really care there's a race going on. And then you're going to have pace keepers, like the people running with you that are helping you keep pace, reminding you to drink water, telling you to keep it up or step it up, or you can rest, lean back, let's take a break. And it's very important to know who these people are in your life. And you can't have too many pace keepers, because then you're crowded and it's easy to stumble and there's too many voices.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving this already. Yes, keep going.
Yes. And so adulthood friendships are just the weirdest thing. So I also want to speak permission over this. Like, I do not have this figured out. I am just as much in the middle of the chaos and cluster of this whole friendship thing as anybody else. But I am like into figuring it out, because I have moved so much and I have two littles and I cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
And I need those people in my life more than I want those people in my life. So I think social media has lied to us and made us believe we know what's going on in other people's life, although we don't. And I think it's also, like, in return, convinced us that we are known, although we're not. And so when we're at that breaking point, which we'll all be at, whether we've hit it or we're going to hit it tomorrow or the next week, I think it can become a really lonely place when we realize I'm not as known as I thought I was, or I don't know them like I thought I did. And so there's a lot of offense and hurt, whatever. And so I've just tried to, yes, like my phone is my job, which is beautiful and hard all at the same time. But my phone and social media does not actually define my relationships or my friendships. And I have to step out from underneath the comfort of a screen, meet people in real life, get to know my elderly neighbors, serve the person across the street in whatever way I can, like right here, right now. So there's so many different kind of communities. There's the podcast community, there's like the Instagram community, and then there's like your actual physical who is living in your proximity community that I think you'd be surprised it's like ready to love you.
Oh my gosh, so true. Wow. Well, what would you say, like, okay, so if people don't know you and they haven't followed Behind the Bliss, will you talk with us a little bit about how that has grown, what that journey has looked like, and then how have you almost had to like come to grips with your identity through that, and like who you are in Christ and what he's calling you in? Because it's very different. And I'm speaking as someone that's been blogging for like 11 years now. Like, you create this thing thinking like, oh, it's just a hobby. This is for fun, like you said. But then like you blink and you're like, oh my gosh, like 5, 6, 7 years has gone down the path. There's all these people I think that they know me. Then, like you said, there's people that I'm moving to and I'm trying to create real community with, and then trying to find the balance in all of it. I think women would just love to hear you speak through what that Behind the Bliss journey has looked like for you and how it's affected your identity.
Sure. Yeah. So just a little bit of context. Started Behind the Bliss, like I said in the beginning, just truly needing a bit of a purpose in a season that felt very purposeless for me and very purpose driven for my husband. So I was like, what does it look like for Rachel right now to do something that matters? And so I happen to know a lot of really cool people with awesome stories, and podcast wasn't really a thing 5 years ago. You had like the churches putting their sermons on podcasts. And then you also had like the entertainment industry on podcast, like all the celebrities were starting one, but there wasn't any in between. What is like entertainment that's encouraging, faith-based storytelling? Like, there was none.
Oh yeah. When you asked me to be on it, I was like, sure, but I don't really know what that means. Okay, I'll come talk with you.
Yeah, it was like Crime Junkies and Rachel. Yeah. So now we're here, and it has grown to, I think, this really cool place where people figured out this is a hole that needs to be filled. which is being real, being honest, and sharing the truth of who Jesus is, but in a way that you can also talk about your favorite jeans and the playlist that you're loving and listening to, because God cares about all of it and the details.
Yes.
And I think like me going first and sharing grief and struggle, we've in our family walked through some hard things like infertility, miscarriage, grief of losing a parent, just like a lot of other valleys, if you will,
Yeah.
as well as the mountaintops. And I think it's refreshing for people to hear, oh, she doesn't have it figured out either, but she's
Amen.
making life heck of a fun time, And I think that there is that in between that exists that women especially need to be reminded of. And so I think that, and again, I hope people are hearing this as a theme for my real life, but then also my online life, and all of it is, I think people are just waiting to have that one girl to go first and to say the thing first, or to say, like, be vulnerable first. And that key term, vulnerable, of course, like, I'm not going to share my deepest, darkest secrets with everyone. And there's things that I just keep secret and intimate for my husband and I, and the Lord and I, and then for my family. And it kind of trickles outwards, like who earns this information in my life.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. So Behind the Bliss, I think, really grew because people were excited for there to be something. And now, thank the Lord, there's plenty of podcasts out there like that, that could be the in between to be like, the silly things matter too. So like we can talk about them.
Yes,
It doesn't
totally.
have to be all like theological and deep and like this intellectual conversation, because life is fun and it should matter too. And I think that, yeah, that goes to say in your real life, physical life too.
You know, one of the most popular questions I hear is, how do you do it all? Or, can I pick your brain? And I always laugh because my knee-jerk reaction is, oh girl, I don't do it all. And now I have a way to let you pick my brain about my business. I have an incredible team of women helping me manage my crazy behind the scenes and keeping My Life Well Loved and this podcast running smoothly. Because Lord knows I'd be a hot mess express trying to do it all myself. This year, I launched a course where I finally do a deep dive and share all the raw details about how I built my business and team to where it is today. My COO, Alyssa, and I recorded over 2 hours of video into 9 lessons to create a course that reviewers are saying is unlike anything else out there. Hey, their words, not mine. But hold on, the videos aren't all. I'm going to read you my list of what it includes so I don't forget any of it. There's a 28-page workbook with questions to move you from stuck as a solopreneur to thriving as a team, or even just hiring your first assistant, with smart goals and steps to guide you from point A to point B efficiently. A behind-the-scenes look at our application, hiring process, and critical onboarding process, my cannot-miss first step in hiring a new employee, and how to cultivate a team buy-in. There's a deep dive on my team's inner workings, our operating systems, favorite apps, and index full of time-saving tools we use to keep our team running smoothly. If you're ready to take your business, side hustle, or network marketing lifestyle to the next level and grow a team, I'm your girl. Head to www.mylifewellloved.com/team to grab yours today.
Amen. So when you talked a little bit about miscarriage and like the hard things in life, how, when you were in those seasons, did you, I guess, balance between the joy of being a Christ follower, but then also having this like heavy heart? And how do you choose the joy? Like, I get that question all the time, and I want to hear your hot take on it.
Yeah. Okay. Hot take for sure. I think it's both, especially with the miscarriage. It taught me that I think growing up, for some reason, I imagined emotions to be this one thing. You can only carry one emotion at a time. Like, oh, I'm really angry right now, so I can't be happy about anything else. I'm just going to sit in my bubble and just be super upset. And then other times I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm not going to think about that hard thing right now. Like, we'll think about it later because I don't want to ruin this amazing moment.
Right.
And I think I've grown to this appreciation of all the emotions and how they actually all can come together. Like they all play a part. Like the reason I can be joyful and I can find hope is because I've experienced grief and heartache. And the reason why I can feel hope with the weight and like actually the excitement of what hope and joy is in my life is because I've acknowledged that was really dang hard. And I think so many times, like when I brush off the hard and I'm like, I can't do that right now. Like, I just got to be happy or like choose joy or whatever. I think I'm losing the opportunity to experience all of what God has for me to experience on earth because it is a hard place to be sometimes.
Yes.
It does have moments of deep sorrow that need to be felt. if you don't feel them and you suppress them, they'll come back later. I've experienced that for sure myself.
Yes.
So I think like emotions, this idea is like you can actually hold multiple at once. Like you can actually experience, oh man, I am so thankful that I have these two boys in my life, but I can also miss my dad that he's not able to be here with me and experience it too. And I can also miss the baby that was, but be grateful that I have Oliver who wouldn't be here had I been able to carry the other baby full term. Like it is a both and. And I don't think it needs to be as compartmentalized. And I think that's the beauty of womanhood too, because hormones, chemicals. We feel a lot at once already for sure.
We do. Our poor husbands that are just like along for the ride with us on our hormone journey.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've talked a lot about all the different things that you balance and what that's looked like. So Rachel, how would you say that you create space and margin for each of the different avenues of your life, from personal Rachel to wife Rachel, mom Rachel, podcaster Rachel? That's a lot to balance.
Yeah. I'm like, you're saying that. I'm like, it is a lot to balance.
You're like,
myself
you're
on
right.
the back. You're doing it. I know. Like, so I shared this on another podcast. I just like, it's blown my mind. So I'm just going to share it again. So forgive me if you've already heard this. Don't know if you know Jenna Kutcher. She's a really cool presence online too. She's a mom that's doing it all. New York Times bestseller. Like, you go queen. She shared this one thing one time that was, I guess, like it really shifted my perspective. She said, the world expects moms to work like they don't have kids and to mom like they don't have jobs. And that's just society's expectation of us. And so how is it that we can carry all these things, do them well, and at the end of the night, like still get sleep peacefully and know that we did a good job with anything, because we're very stretched thin. And she said, I have to be intentional with walking across a threshold and saying, okay, I'm going to go rock this baby to sleep. And I'm not going to think about the email inbox open downstairs or the dishes in the sink or the conversation I have to have later. I'm going to rock my baby to sleep. I'm going to be the best rocker I can be right now.
Yes.
I'm going to be the best mom in this moment. Okay, exit the nursery, enter the email inbox. I'm going to be the best businesswoman I can be right now. I'm going to negotiate the way I need to. I'm going to have brave conversations, whatever, right now. Okay, I'm on date night with my husband. I'm going to leave everything else to the side. We're not going to talk about the kids. We're not going to talk about whatever. Like, I'm going to be the best wife I can be right now. And I don't do that well by any means, but I think that's the goal, is to be able to know, like, I am wearing all these hats at once. I'm not taking one off, putting one back on. So don't hear that. But if you can show up where you're at, be present, be intentional, and truly like lean in that moment, there's so much more you can get out of it than feeling stretched thin constantly because you're not giving anything 100%. Everything's getting 50. And that's not fair for you or other people.
Yeah, especially your kids, especially like your boss, your husband, all of it. You're so right. And when I think about like really being intentional, I feel like one bad thing about social media and all the things that we now have at our disposal is that we constantly are thinking like, oh, I need to share this moment on Instagram, or, oh, I need to capture this for this thing, when really that's robbing us of the joy of just being present in that moment. And that's what I kind of took from that Jenna Kutcher story, is just learning to be present in the moment again.
Yeah. And I think when people are like, how do you do it all? Or anyone gets asked that question, my first answer is always, I don't, period. Like, I can't, I don't. I have an amazing community. I have women that I've outsourced things to. I have neighbors that I've gotten to know and try to be intentional in those relationships so we can know how to serve each other. Like, I don't do it all. I have to have a village. And so I think for the women that are like, how do people do all of it? I'm like, you need to know they don't. And you need to find the people that can help you carry the weight when you feel like you can't measure up, because newsflash, we can't. Like, there's no way.
Find your girl gang. Find your girl gang.
Yes, find your people. I literally, like, this sounds like so shallow, but it's a thing. Like, it helps so much. I have this note on my phone, literally called My Village. And so the people that have been like, hey, like, if you ever need anyone to walk your dog, I'm like, heck yeah, you're going on my note. Like, I'm going to cash that in later. And I do.
That's amazing.
So I think like I'll have those people that are excited to serve us and to love on us and help us do life well. But in the moments of crisis and chaos and overstimulation, we forget who those people are. So practically, like, having that note in my phone to be like, oh my gosh, my dog is driving me up the actual wall. Who is that person again that said they would come walk him if I needed a break, and like texting that friend. And that looks like choosing humility. And again, like, not really caring what people think about you.
Well, and I think that goes back to what you even said in the beginning. It's like, you're showing like, I have this vulnerability. I'm going to go first and say, I can't do it all. Like, can you help me? And then that's going to form that relationship there too, which is huge.
Yes.
So you told me before the show, Rachel, that you believe it's important to lean in, which is what we're talking about, and do the hard work, even when we want to tap out and become numb when life is hard. I agree like 1000%. But can you tell us like some more practical ways that you try to do that in work specifically, in your marriage specifically, and your relationship with Christ specifically?
Yes. So I think we all found ourselves in the place where you get that message or you get that text or email that kind of just puts a pit in your stomach and you think, oh, I can't deal with this right now.
Too much.
Too much, like mark unread, save for later, whatever. I have just tried to challenge myself. What does it look like to lean in? Like when I'm uncomfortable or when I feel that ick or I feel that cringe, like asking myself, what is it about this that's making me feel this way?
Ooh, I like that.
What is it about this that's like making this so difficult time and time again? Like, what is it? And not that I need to fix it or find a solution, but I think asking myself those hard questions and just getting real with myself, being like, ooh, I don't like this because I procrastinated and I need to admit my flaw and apologize. Or I don't like this because I get panicked every time I forget a snack in the car and people get angry on the way home because I forgot the applesauce pouch. So like small practical things like that. I'm like, okay, in my marriage, what is it that is a hardship for us? And we're seeing over and over again, a habit maybe that we don't love. So for us, it's okay, we get the kids to bed and the first thing we want to do is veg. Just sit on the couch, 3 cushions away and just like scroll because we all need a little deep breather. But instead, what would it look like to actually like put our phones up and look at each other in the eyes? And even if you don't say anything, just look at each other. It sounds super awkward, but sharing a little bit a more intimate conversation and time than choosing the easy route, which would be to scroll and to laugh and be like, oh my gosh, look at this reel I just watched. Instead, asking, hey, how's your day? What was the best part? What was the worst part? So practically on this, if you feel like y'all aren't in that place in your marriage, that's totally fine. And you need a good resource. There's like a card deck that we've used that has conversation starters that have been so cool. I've gotten to know Thomas in ways I never knew him before because it has some of the silliest little questions. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, did you ever sleep with a stuffed animal? What was their name? Like, how long did you sleep with them? Like,
oh, cute.
Things about our husband we probably don't know, you know? It helps you. Like, just be intentional. So that's marriage.
Is this on Amazon? Can you send me a link for the show notes?
Yes, I will link it for you. Absolutely.
Great.
Yes, because everyone needs this. It's a great tool for friendships too, but especially marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to be that person that knows about my husband.
Yes.
Because we both, like we were saying in the beginning, we desire to be known. So that's marriage. And for work, if I'm just struggling to focus, I love setting a timer and getting it done. Being like, okay, I have 20 minutes that all I'm going to do is knock out my inbox. Like if my frustration and my work is that I just feel like I can't focus, okay, I ask for help. I hire a babysitter or a teenager to come over and just stay at home with my kids while I go lock myself in an office and just get it done. Like find a way to practically get it done. And then I would also say in friendships, I think it's also like the deck I was kind of telling you about, the cards is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think on Sunday nights, something I've tried to do is plan out my week and figure out not only like what are we eating or whatever, meal prepping, all the things. I also like to prep and say who are play dates that we could have over or go over to. Where could we go? Could we meet someone at a park and go ahead and schedule those? Because I think it's also helped me in motherhood have something like that to look forward to throughout the week. So things don't just become mundane. So I think it's easy to tap out.
Hi, friend. Are you enjoying this episode? Hit that plus sign in the top right of your Apple Podcast app or the follow button in your Spotify app or wherever you're listening. That way you automatically get each new episode without having to search for it. You're welcome. I agree. I have in here like a Sunday reset that I do. And one of the biggest things that I learned to do is, yes, the meal planning, obviously. Like I feel like that just sets your week up for success. All the things. I can link my meal planning ebook down below too. But it's really thinking like, when am I going to have a date night with my husband? What babysitter do I need to book tonight to make the week run smoother? Or what friend have I not reached out to in a while? And just being intentional with that Sunday planning for the whole week from a relational health as well as just your physical health and like feeding your body.
Yeah. All the things need planning.
Yes, they really do, unfortunately. It takes a lot of time, but that's okay.
That's right. I think that's the thing about social media too, is it makes it look like everyone's having fun on the fly and like so spontaneous and whatever. I'm like, and maybe there is some of that, but good things take planning and discipline and showing up when you don't feel like it and intentionality.
Especially after you have kids.
especially after you have kids. Yes. And working around nap times. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Yes. All of it.
Amen and amen. Okay, so Rachel, I know you've been podcasting for a while, and now you offer the Podcast Academy, which Rachel, I took it before I launched Healthy with Heather Brown. I know that you know that, but it was such a good foundation for me starting this podcast. And my heart just goes out to mamas doing the side hustle or full-time business owner thing. It's just hard, like we've discussed. So what encouragement do you have for them as they try to balance all the things? Like, I know that we've talked some about that, but I think about the Podcast Academy. How do you almost like section out your time of like, I'm recording the podcast, now I'm doing Podcast Academy. And then I know you have merch too. So how do you physically like figure out your time with kids with all that stuff?
Yes, I am a nap time hero. I like love a good nap time hustle, but also again, it's like the asking for help. So when we were moving around a lot, like we didn't really have a Mother's Day out program. We didn't have time, or there wasn't an opening. And I wouldn't know about the base's resources until we got to that specific base. And then there was a big wait list, just like all the things, logistics.
Yeah.
So nap time was really important to me, but also I found help. Like I found a teenager who needed a job. It's also really cool to think through, like, what are the other moms that are trying to do this? Like, who else could I help that could help me and we could help each other? So what does it look like to maybe find a mom and say, hey, could, my little guy come play with yours so I could have an afternoon and then you could have an afternoon on Thursday and I'll take all your kids, like swapping.
Yeah.
I think it looks a lot more savvy than maybe we have imagined it to be. And I think the concept of, oh, she's doing it so well, I'll never be able to do it like that, I'm just not even going to try, has stopped a lot of women.
Yeah.
So I want to say, like, it looks a lot more creative than people may lead on. So find the help, like whether it's a Mother's Day out program or you're hiring a teenager to come over after school for whatever an hour and just come and watch your kids so you can get it done. Hustle during nap time. Go ahead and plan the night before, like what you need to get done and prioritize it in a list almost.
Rachel, I do want to ask this because I know we have a lot of mamas that want to do what you do or I do, or they are an artist. They want to do some kind of Etsy shop. Where have you found to tangibly get people to help you in your business? Like, do you have any websites or even Facebook groups that have been helpful for you that maybe other mamas could learn from or research?
Yes, I love that. Okay, so one of them that has been awesome for like outsourcing, freelancing, whatever you want to call it, is Fiverr, Fiverr. They have graphic designers, they have marketing strategists, they've got truly like any creative something that you need help with, they've got it.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. You're right.
Yep.
And I'll link that also in the show notes too. So you guys will have that resource there for you as well.
Yes.
And then Rachel, is there anything else that you want to add just as like an encouragement to mamas that are listening to this, just of where to get started if they have this creative dream, where to go from there?
Yeah. Okay. First, I just want to encourage whoever's listening. I just feel like there's a mom that's listening that's thinking, like, this is just such a hard season, having to raise littles. I want to do that well, but I also know that that's not all I've been called to be as a mom. And I want to say that might not be all you've called to be as a mom. And not just that being a mom isn't enough, because that is incredible and such a gift to be able to even walk that through in this life. But I think it's okay that you desire more. Like, it's okay that being a mom's not enough for you, because I think I dealt with that guilt a lot, like the first year of motherhood. And I would also say, like, I know it seems overwhelming. I'm also in the trenches. I'm like preaching to myself, truly, Heather. I'm like, yes to her, but this is for me too.
Yes.
Like a good pat on my back. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to give Rachel a pat on the back because she just hosted a 2-year-old birthday party, had family in town. They just moved back to Birmingham like within the past like 6 to 9 months. So you deserve the pat on the back. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks.
All the logistics.
So
figuring it out.
We're figuring it out. That's right. But I would also say, like, just this comes with a lot of grace. And this comes with, yes, juggling a lot of balls at once. And I've heard this, my counselor shared this with me. So this is one of my little tidbits, is that all the balls that we're juggling aren't created the same. There's some balls that are glass balls, some balls that are rubber balls, some balls that are whatever. So like when we drop them, like, what is the consequence of dropping a glass ball? It'll shatter. Like, it's a very important ball. Like, please don't drop it. The rubber balls you can drop, they'll bounce back. No biggie. And I think it's important for us to figure out, like, what are the things in life that are going to do what when we drop them? Because it's not if we drop them, it's when we drop them, because we're humans. And so having the grace for ourselves, 2, figuring out what are our priorities as moms, which I would hope is like family. And for me, it's my relationship with Christ. And then comes other responsibilities. But then it's also finding the people that can help you, like the pace keepers we were talking about at the beginning, being like, oh, you're about to drop a ball, and go and catch it for you. or help you clean up the mess when one shatters. And so I know that's like one big analogy, but that's kind of how like I've tried to love myself through this whole process of taking on a lot at once. But practically, like I hope people have listened to this and figured out like I need to find my people. I need to show up and ask for help and be okay with that.
Yes. Rachel, do you have any favorite devotionals or books that you've read recently? And especially, I feel like one thing that I've heard a lot recently is that women lost touch with the church, especially during COVID. And then they're like, okay, I'm trying to get back into it. And that's where they're running into like, I got out of the habit. Now I don't feel connected anymore to the church. And it's almost easier just to listen to a podcast or listen to a sermon. Is there some type of like community or advice you have for them and or a book or devotional you recommend?
Yeah. Okay. Find Your People by Jenny Allen. An incredible book. It is all about, you guessed it, finding your people.
Finding your people.
Yeah. So she gives really great practicals there, really funny stories, just what does it look like to go first and to help like cultivate that community that you're so desiring because other people desire it too. So what would it look like for you to be the girl that stepped out in faith and had the awkward conversation or introduced yourself first or whatever? Great book. And then for the girls that are just trying to get back and like find community or a small group or get plugged into a church, like I would say that church is most likely in your community. I'm going to step on some toes.
That's okay.
But I just would say like get off the couch, like go in person, meet the people. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And like be okay with moving on. Be okay with church shopping. It's actually a thing. And
yeah,
I think it's so beautiful that there are options for churches that are able to meet you and your needs. And we've recently switched churches because our family needs something different than it did 7 years ago when we started going to a church in Birmingham. So I think also just taking inventory over the needs of your family. Do you need kids' church and a nursery? Do you desire to go serve your community in the ways that that church is serving their community? And so like asking and adjusting is actually a beautiful thing. So
yes,
I know it sounds crazy and it's not a rocket science, but just like get off your couch, show up to a church and ask yourself the hard questions, start getting involved. If it's not right, back up, start again. Easier said than done for sure, but important.
it is. And when I used to teach Pure Bar in Homewood, I would always tell women that like came there and were like, I'm just like struggling. I don't know if I want to be here today. And I was like, you already did the hardest part. The hardest part is just getting off your couch and showing up. So do that favor for yourself in church and your workouts, at your counseling, whatever it is, you know, you need to show up for, just get there. And the person you're meeting there will help you get through the rest, you know? So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the person that you admire, like, oh, I love her small group. Like, oh, I love that she's in a book club or whatever. Okay, go ask her about the book club. Like, go ask her what church do you go to that has that small group that you love so much and keep talking about? And then like maybe show up there, because if you admire that, you probably would admire more of what's behind the scenes there. So
exactly. Yes, agree. So Rachel, where can listeners find you online and what's coming up next for you, sister?
Yay. You can find me over on Instagram at rachel.awtrey or on the podcast side of things, any podcast platform it's your favorite. You can find us there at Behind the Bliss Podcast. Fun things are happening. Spoiler alert. We might not be Behind the Bliss Podcast for long. There's a lot of things that are switching up.
Oh,
I know.
I'm like, what? I want to hear all the deets.
Oh, we are merging a few really cool projects, making things a little bit more like fresh and cohesive and making sure that we're serving our people well, because I say this all the time, like one of my favorite parts is growing up with the community.
Yeah.
So when we started Behind the Bliss, we were all like newly married, engaged, dating, whatever. And now I feel like a lot of us are moms of multiples or figuring it out, like going for that dream. And we've all kind of grown up together. And so what does it look like to refresh and reevaluate? So we're doing all of that. It's a lot.
Yay. That's exciting, Rachel.
It is. So anyways, you can keep up with all the fun things if you wanted to join us just by texting bestie to 55444, and you'd easily hop on our email list. And we love to share a lot of things. Like Heather is really great at sharing this too, but like discount codes, links, things we're loving.
Yes.
Playlists that we're listening to. All the things that you just don't want to miss and make life super fun.
I love it. Well, Rachel, this is my final question, and I ask this to every guest. It is, what is your favorite thing in your health journey that's making you feel like yourself right now? This can be anything. So it can be spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, however you want to take it.
Yes. Okay. You asked a very timely question. So 2 months into the postpartum life, I'm still in like the 4th trimester, they say.
Yes.
And so something that's been helping me so much, especially mentally, is getting dressed.
Ooh.
Sounds so simple, But if you're a stay-at-home mom or you work from home, I think it's so easy to get cozy, get comfy, make your coffee, brush your teeth, and like call that it. There's a lot more that I think our body needs to even realize like, okay, it's time to turn on. It's time to do stuff.
Yes.
So for me, it's changing clothes, even if it's to just like another lounge set, but just like refresh, change clothes, get dressed, put on a swipe of mascara and put on some tennis shoes or whatever kind of shoes. I feel like I could conquer the world, Heather. What is it about like changing outfit? But for real, for me, like for all the moms that are at home, please do that. Like do it with me because it has given me so much more motivation than staying in the jammies.
Yes.
Those are for Saturdays.
That's right. Well, and I feel like it's a daily ritual that you can do that just is like training your mind. Okay. And now it's time to transition to the new day. Yay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Rachel, I'm honored you joined us. I will link up all of Rachel's things. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, friend.
Well, I appreciate you. Thanks, Heather.
Absolutely. Well, you guys give us a follow on Instagram. Follow us on the podcast. Make sure to follow Behind the Bliss as well. If you'll screenshot this and then share it to your Instagram stories and tag us, we would love to hear what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. I know every time that I listen to Rachel speak, I feel like I can just feel the Lord's love pouring out of her. And I feel like she does such a good job of showing raw realness and what community looks like. And I hope that you guys felt that here today and know how much you are loved by us and by King. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.
If y'all think I'm a little crazy, just wait till my favorite guest joins me in the Marriage Corner. It's my hubby, Eric. Hey, we back in the Marriage Corner.
Good to be back. Got my pre-workout in again. So yeah, I'm just feeling good. And I love the Marriage Corner.
The Marriage Corner is a good place to be. Unfortunately, I am on a 24-hour fast today, so I don't have quite the same energy that Eric does.
And I will say, you just finished working out as well, too. And we're kind of doing this in between going to get kids. And you said, Eric, you just have to bear with me. I don't have time to shower, so I might be a little stinky when we are recording this podcast. And I said, that's totally fine because I know when I get home from the gym, Heather a lot of times will tell me, Eric, you've got to put your gym clothes in the washer and dryer immediately when you get home because you stink.
Yeah, so I'm stinky, I'm hungry, hopefully not hangry though.
That's true. So today in the Marriage Corner, and we did this a couple Marriage Corners ago as well too, I want to discuss a research paper that I came across. I think it's funny because sometimes friends or spouses, they'll send each other text messages, or a lot of times they'll send each other memes. I tend to send you different studies as it relates to health.
Which I love. I mean, luckily I like to geek out with you on that stuff.
So that's one aspect of our relationship. But this one study, an article that talks about this study, it's from the University of South Australia. And the title of the article is Exercise More Effective Than Medicines to Manage Mental Health. So the University of South Australia basically are showing that University of South Australia research are calling for exercise to be a mainstay approach for managing depression, as a new study shows that physical activity is 1.5 times more effective than counseling or the leading medications.
Woo!
And this stuck out to me because working in the medical field, I feel like so often just the first line of defense is, here's a pill, here's a medication, and this will fix all your problems. And the doctors that I really respect, and thankfully I work with a lot of those doctors, is they take a holistic approach. It's a this and kind of mentality where it's not only just a medication, it's also a lifestyle change. And I felt like this article really spoke to that aspect.
Well, I also think it's really interesting because if you listen to the beginning of season 2, where we talked a lot about mental health, which I'll link that episode with Brent and Andy.
So anyways, the question was, and it was mainly kind of controversial, but it was, is depression real? I think we all agree that depression is real, but it was kind of just to get the discussion started on what are the best treatments for depression, for anxiety, and things of that nature. So this article kind of spoke to that as well, too.
Yeah. So I'm going to link back to that episode because I thought it was really interesting to hear Brent's clinical take on it from the, psychology side and then your side. And it was just really, really fascinating. So all that to say, as someone that has struggled with postpartum depression before, I also was very intrigued by the fact that even when you showed me that article, they said not just for depression in general, but even for women postpartum. Like it wasn't just one type of depression or anxiety.
So just a little bit of specifics about this study. The study was published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, huge study encompassing 128,000 participants. And it specifically showed that exercise interventions that were 12 weeks or shorter were the most effective at reducing mental health symptoms, highlighting the speed at which physical activity can make a change. The largest benefits were seen among people with depression, pregnant and postpartum women, healthy individuals, and people diagnosed with HIV or kidney disease. One of the things in the article, it kind of talks about just the costs, depression, anxiety, and mental health disorders, just in general on the overall population. It says, so according to the World Health Organization, 1 in every 8 people worldwide, or 970 million people in the world, live with a mental disorder, and poor mental health costs the world economy approximately $2.5 trillion each year, which is expected to rise to $6 trillion by the year 2030. Dr. Ben Singh was one of the lead researchers from the University of South Australia, and he was quoted as saying, physical activity is known to help improve mental health. Yet, despite the evidence, it has not been widely adopted as a first choice treatment, which I completely agree with.
And why is it? Why do you think that is the case, Eric?
Money.
Short, simple, and sweet. That for people that are like, what do you mean?
There's no money to be made by telling somebody to go exercise. I mean, except for if you belong to gyms and things of that nature, but you don't have to belong to a gym to be physically active. You can go outside, walk, do some squats, do some push-ups in your house. But I mean, obviously, and you've talked about this, and we talk about this as well, too, is these pharmaceutical companies, you know, they have such an influence on society today. And, you know, like I always say, just follow the money and then you'll find the motive, you know? So I think that is a big reason why why physical activity is not recommended as a first line of defense, specifically as it relates to mental health.
Yeah. And I thought it was so interesting that the article also said there is 1 in 8 people that struggle with mental health, right?
I honestly thought it would be higher.
Oh, did you really?
1 in 6 or something along those lines, because I feel like everybody knows at least 1 to multiple people that struggle with mental health issues. So that's another reason why this was so interesting to me is you're always promoting healthy living, physical activity, mental health, and how this mind-body connection really does all play into each other.
I do think it's really interesting, too, because with my personal experience with postpartum depression, I often wonder, why is it that I, had a baby and then they basically say like, after I had Leighton, they said you can't walk, for the next 6 weeks. But even if they would have said, just try to do yoga, do some breath work, do something that still is helping you get active. And then I also find it really interesting that, when you have a baby also, they don't tell you anything about these are the things that are going to help your body naturally recover. There's no conversations about getting outside the vitamin D. There's no conversations about the free resources and tools that we have in our tool belt to help us as women be able to hopefully not go into postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression or, those
Sure.
many, many issues women have.
Yeah. And I think you'll agree. We're by no means saying that medications are not appropriate or can't help people that have mental health disorders or depression and anxiety. I think you'll be the first one to say that when you were on a medication for a very brief period of time, it did help you temporarily. But like you said, there's just not as much emphasis on physical activity and alternative thoughts and practices for mental health. So getting back a little bit more specifically to the study, some of the things that it showed was that higher intensity exercise had greater improvements for depression and anxiety, while longer durations had actually smaller effects compared to. So I think this goes to show these high intensity interval kind of training workouts, similar to CrossFit, but just higher intensity, it shows was a little bit more effective.
You hear that, Burn Nation?
Had more of a benefit. So also too, another quote from Dr. Ben Singh was, quote, importantly, the research shows that it doesn't take much for exercise to make a positive change to your mental health, but doesn't say specifically, and I should go more into the details about specifically how long. And I'm not even sure if they if they said exactly how long the amount of exercise would be beneficial.
But I do think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of research about even a 20-minute walk outside has been shown to help with mental health benefits. So I would say working out for at least 20 minutes, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's definitely appropriate. Like you said, it doesn't have to be long. They showed it was most effective with high intensity, but any exercise, low intensity walking is better than obviously no exercise. And, I talked about this in a prior podcast as well, too, how important being out in nature and quote unquote green time is for overall mental health. We talked about it specifically as it related to ADHD, how important being outside is. But that's not just for people that have ADHD, it's for everybody. And I know that's one thing. And I'm so proud of you because you were always encouraging our children to be outside. We take them on walks. And like you mentioned before, they love to go to the parks, go to Red Mountain and all these things. So the more we can do that, the better.
Yeah. And I also think this all plays back into mind, body, spirit health. It's all so interconnected. So it helps you get over the hump because, when you're depressed or you're anxious, you don't want to go work out. How do you maintain discipline when you're maybe feeling more that way in the past, like when you were in accounting and, really unhappy? Like what made you be able to mentally jump over the hurdle to get to the gym?
Man, it's kind of difficult to say, but I think I've come to the point now where if I'm not exercising regularly, which is very rare, I mean, the only times that happens is maybe if we go on a vacation or I'm sick for a few days and might have to take a couple of days off. But even if I'm sick just a little bit, I'm trying to go and exercise because I'm actually a big believer in that helps you recover quickly if you just have a minor cold or things of that nature. But for me, I can tell after that week or so of not exercising, I feel more lethargic. I feel maybe just a little bit more depressed. I'm a little bit more irritable. And so I can recognize now, like, all right, we need to get back to the gym. And I know once I start going to the gym, you get those endorphins going. You start to see, positive effects in your body. Maybe I increase my strength, increase my speed, or I had a really good day. And not to mention, you get one of those workouts and you just feel accomplished and you feel good about yourself. You're like, I've done something today. And I feel like that kind of kicks into other aspects of your day and other aspects of your life and your work. So for me, it's just, I'm able to recognize now, I've seen how I feel when I don't exercise and I know how I feel when I do exercise. And I definitely like the way I feel when I exercise compared to when I don't.
Absolutely. So like Eric said, if you, are on depression medication and you want to try adding in exercise, don't feel like you have to run a mile. If you can't run a mile, you can walk a mile. If you can't walk a mile, walk half a mile. Just start small. And then if you start to feel better, maybe address those issues with your doctor. And I just think it's so cool knowing that we have God-given tools in our tool belt that we can use that some research is now even saying is better than the medication. So obviously check with your physician, see what small tweaks you can make. And then don't be afraid to ask hard questions, to research, to do your own study as well. Any other thoughts?
That's it.
Yeah. And we're out with a bang, guys. We'll link this in the show notes so you can read the whole study yourself as well. And then let us know what you think about it. Slide in my DMs this week. Have a great day. Bye. Hey, if you're loving the show, click that follow button on your podcast app. This will ensure you won't miss a single episode. I'll see you next time.